الحمد لله وكفاه وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفاه أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are in the final nights, or the final days rather, of Ramadan. So we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all of our efforts this month to draw closer to Him and to grant us the barakah of this month and all of our affairs, dunyawiyya wa ukhrawiyya, both the affairs of this world and in the hereafter. There's a hadith that is mentioned by Al-Imam al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah ta'ala in his book Dalail al-Nubuwah, and also another one of his works, As-Sunan al-Kubra, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has reported to have said, يحمل هذا العلم من كل خلف عدوله ينفون عنه تحريف الغالين وانتحال المبتلين وتأويل الجاهلين أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, which means more or less that in every generation there shall be people who inherit this ilm, that is the ilm of deen, and then thereafter will relay that ilm, and they will negate the false interpretations of the people of bid'ah, in other words, or the people of falsehood, that those who in their extreme views would change certain things or certain aspects of the deen, or those who will falsely attribute things to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or even just out of ignorance make false interpretations. In either case, all three of these cases, they have changed the deen in some form, in some way, either out of their ghulu, meaning that they have certain extreme opinions, and in order to support those opinions, they may reinterpret certain values or certain ideas that are transmitted to us by the Prophet ﷺ from Allah, and then to every succeeding generation. Or they just attribute things falsely to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or they may not do either of those two, but because of their ignorance, they make certain interpretations that are also false and not part of the deen. But because of their lack of knowledge, they are jahilin, they may do so, maybe not with the intent as the other two groups. That one group, they have, again, there's ghulu, they have a certain opinion that is extreme, that is out the boundaries of what has been taught to us. And with that, to support that opinion, they may change certain ideas. Tahrif literally means to change something in terms of its word or the wording, that you change the words in such a way to support your extreme view. You take the text, that you take what is in the Quran and the Sunnah, and now interpret it in a way that will support your own opinions about something. In this case, either of an extreme opinion, or sometimes even people who be so brazen and bold as the second group, وَانْتِحَالَ الْمُبْطِلِينَ, that they will just make things up to support their opinion. Or the third group, that out of ignorance, they interpret certain ayat and certain ahadith and certain events in the time of the Prophet ﷺ in a way that suits them. Either way, this is not a authentic representation of the deen. So that's why in this hadith the word uduluhu is used, that those who relay the deen that they inherited, because this is the thing, min kulli khalfin, meaning after every generation there is another generation that comes after them who succeeds them, literally min kulli khalfin, that they come from behind them, meaning that they succeed them. And that generation, their job will simply be to relay what was given to them, without changing it or interpreting it like these other people in a way that it changes the actual message. That's why they're called uduluhu, from adala, meaning they are 100% honest and reliable, and that they just simply relay what was relayed to them from the generations preceding them. This hadith is in many ways related to another hadith that I mentioned last time about the ta'ifa, or that group that will always exist in this ummah. لا تزال طائفة ولا تزال في أمتي طائفة. That one ala al-haq, there will always be a group in the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that will be upon the truth. This is also a hadith that relates to that, but just explains it a little further. First thing is that this hadith gives us a lot of hope. This month, again, we have seen a lot of great stalwarts and giants of Islam and the knowledge of deen pass away, rahimahullah ta'ala. And sometimes that can cause us to be a little concerned. What we have to see from this hadith, though, is that there will always be a generation that succeeds the one that came before them in terms of relaying that knowledge that they had to other people and relaying it in such a way that they do not add or subtract anything. They do it in complete sincerity. They don't try to interpret things for their own sake or for anyone else's sake, but they keep that knowledge going. This is an important thing because it shows us that as times go on, there will either be two groups. There will be a group that will be on the truth, لا تزال في أمتي طائفة على الحق, and this hadith also supports that there will be a generation to succeed those stalwarts of Islam who reliably gave to us whatever the Prophet taught sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there will be a group that will come after them that will do the same thing, and that will happen hatta yawm al-qiyamah, hatta ya'tiya amrullah, until the day of judgment. That will go on and continue. So we should not get despondent and think that the end of the world is upon us. There's no hope. No, every generation, min kulli khalfin, without exception, لا تزال في أمتي طائفة على الحق حتى يأتي أمر الله. So without exception, every generation will have those people there present. Even if maybe their numbers may dwindle, but they will be there. And that gives us hope that even if we lose our asatida, right? And even if we lose those people who have reliably relayed everything that was taught by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there will always be someone there to succeed them. Ala kulli khalfin. Always. But they will be juxtaposed, or in other words, they will be the opposite of a second group. The second group will be those who will try to change the deen out of their ghulu, extreme views that they may hold, or out of the intention to actually lie and invent something about the deen that is really not there, or out of ignorance. That group will be there as well. So there's either one of the two. We have two choices. Either we become part of the group that just simply relays what was given to them. It may be that sometimes when relaying that knowledge, it's necessary to explain it in a way that is relative to the audience and in the language of the audience. That's fine. There's no problem with that. So we can, in other words, take the knowledge that was given to the Prophet ﷺ and relate to us, and then relay it to others. But to explain it to others, we may sometimes have to use a different language, like in our case, English, or we have to speak to people in the way that they speak, meaning in the time and place that they're in, the kind of ideas that they have and the way they express those ideas. We use that language to express the truth that is embedded in the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. That's fine. But what we don't do, though, is add or subtract anything like these other people add. Right? تحريف الغالين وانتحال المبتلين وتأويل الجاهلين. That these other people either did ifrat or tafrit, added or subtracted something that was not there in the message of the Prophet ﷺ for whatever other purposes they have. We don't do that. But what we can do is explain it in a way that it can be understood by the people we're talking to. But still, what I'm trying to concentrate on is that there are two groups. There will be one group always that will be there relaying this message, that will be there giving this message to the people as it was given to them all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ. And that's indicated by يَحْمِلُ هَذَا الْعِلْمِ مِنْ كُلِّ خَلْفٍ. The indication there too is the indication of a transmission that is carried, literally يَحْمِلُ هَذَا الْعِلْمِ, that is carried from generation to generation. It is simply transferred, meaning it's the same thing. You give this message to the ones who come after you and the ones who come after you. فَلْيُبَلِّغْ الشَّاهِدُ الْغَائِبَ, as the Prophet ﷺ told us to do. Those of you who are present here today, talking to his students, the companions, the most illustrious of us, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, and telling them to convey that message. And that was the job that was given to them, that is given to us, that we carry that message forward and we give that knowledge to every succeeding generation. And by the fadl of Allah and the promise of Allah, inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun, He relayed this dhikr, not just the Quran. The word Quran is not used, it's dhikr, meaning that it's wahi and everything related to wahi, revelation that is given to us both in the form of the Quran itself, wahi al-matnu, and also in the form of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in his actions, in his words, and his approvals, what we usually call hadith according to some, and that is in essence the general practice that he taught also to his companions and so forth and so on. All of this is included in a wahi ghayr al-matnu. Okay? It is in any case revelation from Allah, and that wahi, okay, that is being preserved. It is the dhikr and everything also that helps us to understand that revelation. Things like the Arabic language itself, it's a miracle, it's been preserved. Some linguistics in America, right, they have noted that modern Arabic is no doubt very different. Colloquial Arabic that people speak, respectively what they call their lahja, is very different from classical Arabic, right? So the point here that we have to think about is, if it had not been for the protection of Allah, of wahi, and everything related to wahi, so even the Arabic language would have changed like any other language had in history, because it's just the natural progression of things. As the Arab moved throughout the world and spread Islam and mixed with different people and married into different people and so forth and so on, the language would definitely change, and did change in many respects. Even according to the Tabaqat al-Shu'ara, historians who and linguistics that know about the poetry of the Arab, there are levels of how we understand the eloquence of that poetry. The most eloquent Arabs, afsah al-Arab, were the Arabs in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and every generation came after them would actually be less and less eloquent. So their poetry even is not considered to be a primary source of understanding the true nature of the Arabic language. You have to go to the poetry of the Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic era, or you have to go to the poetry in the time of the Prophet ﷺ to understand the true language and the ladha and the true pleasure of the language of the Prophet or the Arabs. So that's, almost an historical fact. Languages change. If you look at the English language and its origin, right, it's much different. In its origin, if anyone knows about the work Beowulf, which is like the oldest book we have available of original English, it's practically German, right? There's no way you'd be able to understand it if you read it. So that's the way things go. Languages change, but the Arabic language was preserved. The recitation of the Quran, tilawa and tajweed, was preserved to such an extent that we not only know that how these letters are pronounced, meaning we know the makharij, right? We know that certain letters are produced from the lips, from the tongue, the tip of the tongue, the side of the tongue, the front of the teeth, right? The back of the teeth, the upper teeth, the lower teeth, the throat, all the way down to our chest. That we know exactly where the letters come from when they're pronounced, and we even know their sifat, meaning we know that certain letters, that when you pronounce them, there's no air that flows out of your mouth, right? And so forth and so on. Where do you find this detail? This is the miracle of the Quran itself, that Allah said He would preserve it. So in the same way, Allah will preserve that knowledge that the Prophet ﷺ taught in total, every generation. يَحْمِلُ هَذَا الْعِلْمِ مِنْ كُلِّ خَلْفٍ. In every generation, that knowledge will be carried and that will be preserved. So in some ways, we have everything to be happy about and to be joy and to celebrate the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He has given us that there will be this preservation of the deen of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam until the day of judgment. But the thing is that, as I said, there will be two groups. Okay, some will be those who carry and preserve this knowledge. Others will be the opposite. They will interpret, or they will interpolate, they will bring things into it that's not from it. Or they will just out of ignorance say things that they presume to be from Islam or presume to be from the deen of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it's not. Right? Even more than that, we see also that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that we would follow the ways of the people before us. And also there's one narration where he said, Antum ashbahul ummami min bani Israel, that you are the nation that resembles Bani Israel more than anybody else. Ashbahul ummam, that you Muslims will be like Bani Israel more than any other nation on earth. Meaning, again, we will follow them. Some of us, this is the point, this is not all of us, but some of us will follow the children of Israel step by step. So, what is the result of that? If we are not willing to give the sacrifices and the efforts that were made by our forefathers and our teachers who succeeded us, then in essence we're following in the trail of Bani Israel, which are two things. All right, one is their cowardly ways, and that they would not be willing to sacrifice for the sake of Allah, and because of that also they ended up changing the deen of Allah. Okay, this tahrif, they ended up changing the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see as many examples. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when Musa alayhi salam told them, يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين, that all my people enter into the Holy Land. Of course, this is Palestine and what would eventually become Jerusalem. That was promised to you. Actually, the word is used in Arabic is that كتب الله لكم, meaning it is written literally for you. Written for you, kataba lakum, means it will happen. It's waqi'. If it says kataba, it means that it will definitely happen. So if you look at the language, Musa alayhi salam is telling them that just go and do what you're told. Enter into this land, and it's yours. Kataba Allahu lakum. You don't have to worry about anything. It's already yours. It's like past tense. In other words, it's like saying you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be frightened. You don't have to be scared about the future. If you do what you're told, you will be guaranteed, without any doubt, that this land is yours. And whoever turns away, though, turns their back, literally, then they will be from amongst the losers. I mean, he gives them a warning. It's almost as if he knew what was going to happen, like he knew his people. That even if I tell them that Allah has already written it, كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ, it's already there for you, they're still not going to do it. And if they don't do it, then the result will be a big loss. There's a lesson in this. Nowadays, we see that we are gripped with so much fear and uncertainty about the future, but there's no room for that. First of all, the Prophet ﷺ said that no generation will be bereft of those who succeed their forefathers in carrying this knowledge. Okay? يَحْمِلُ هَذَا الْعِلْمِ عَنْ كُلِّ مِنْ كُلِّ خَلْفٍ عَدُولُهُ. That is a promise. So it's the same situation. We're being promised something here. We're being told that this will be the reality. If you accept that, and you should accept it, because it is sinful actually to not have full yaqeen and certainty in the promises of Allah. It's a sin. Many people don't know that. To not believe and have full certainty in the promises of Allah is a sin. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا excuse me. So this is important to remember. We've been promised something. And we're not promised something because Allah plays with us. Allah can do whatever He wants. He doesn't have to give us anything. So if He gives a promise and a wa'd, it means that is His will, that it's going to happen. So that's why we have absolute certainty in these wa'd and promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So enter into this holy land that has been written for you. It is promised to you and it is yours. Don't turn away and be of those who are the losers. What did they say in response? قالوا يا موسى إن فيها قوما جبارين وإنا لن ندخلها حتى يخرجوا منها فإن يخرجوا منها فإنا داخلون. He said, "Oh Musa, in this land there are very powerful, strong people, and as long as they stay in this land, we will never, لن ندخلها." The word لن, like it's like they weren't even saying maybe, maybe not. They're saying no, never, ever, ever will we even dare to enter into this land as long as these strong and powerful people are there. If they leave, then we might go. Okay. They went even further to say that you go, you and your Lord, and we'll stay here. The result of that attitude, even after they were promised that they will be given victory and they will have everything that Allah has written for them, even in they were promised, their attitude was to be scared and fearful and not go forward even after being promised. What was the result of that? They ended up doing what? They ended up being forbidden from entering that land. قال فإنها محرمة عليهم 40 سنة يتيهون في الأرض فلا تأس على القوم الفاسقين. So what happened as a result of their cowardice and not doing their job and not believing in the promise of Allah and even giving Musa alayhi salam a hard time is that they were then forbidden from entering that land for 40 years straight, wandering yatihuna fil ard, wandering around the earth aimlessly. Literally, as they said, wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, just going back and forth, not accomplishing anything. If they had just believed in the promise of Allah and had hope and did what they were told, they would have found the promise of Allah to be true. But instead, out of cowardice. So what is the cowardice telling you? That there's danger there. Don't go. There's hardship there. Don't go. As shaitan does, يَعِدُكُمُ الْفَقْرِ. He promises you that you will lose something. And by listening to that, what ended up happening is you ended up losing something anyhow. Meaning, you were promised to gain. You were promised the help of Allah, and you were promised this land. كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. You lost it. Now you have nothing. يَتِيهُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. You're wandering from place to place aimlessly. The result of your cowardice was actually that what you thought you were going to avoid, which is hardship, is what you ended up being in. If you had listened to your Prophet salam, and you had done what you were told and followed the commandment of Allah and had firm conviction in the promise of Allah, then you would have had everything that you were looking for: security, honor, your own land, a place to call your own where you could practice your deen. But you didn't want to do that because you were afraid, and as a result, you ended up into that which you feared to be fall into, which is that yatihuna fil ard. You have nowhere to go now, and you're wandering around aimlessly, not achieving anything at all. So if there are two groups, one that will carry the truth and one that will try to change the truth, and there's also a group that the Prophet ﷺ said will follow Bani Israel step by step, and there's another group which Allah has also said they are the people who will follow whom وَالَّذِينَ تَبَعُوهُمْ, those who follow the companions. الأولون السابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار والذين تبعوهم, the companions of the Prophet, those who gave everything with all the conviction in the world that the promises of Allah are true and that what the Prophet gave to them sallallahu alaihi wasallam is true, and relayed that to us, that same deen, without adding or subtracting and sacrificing their wealth and themselves for that cause. Right? Then, when we follow them, we get their results. Radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. That Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Him. And also in this world too, we will get the same results. We will get izzah and honor and everything that we seek. If we follow Bani Israel, then we will get Bani Israel results. Yatihuna fil ard. It's a very simple thing. So either you stick to the people that preceded us who stuck to the truth, and you will see great things, or else you let this fear and anxiety of the future, which is unfounded. It's unfounded. Innal izzata lillah. Honor is for Allah and for the Prophet and for those who believe. Right? This is a reality. It is actually jumlatul ismiya, yani it is a statement of a truth that cannot be changed. Right? The problem is not that. The problem is which path do we choose? Do we want to become the people of the ummah who decide to follow in the path of those who succeeded and therefore succeed? Or do we want to follow in the path of those who turned away, got scared, didn't want to do anything that Allah commanded them to do, did not want to carry this knowledge that was given to them as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore got certain results throughout their history? We don't want that. And we cannot even imagine, right, that what happened to them what happened to us, but unfortunately in some ways we actually see it. So it shouldn't even be a mystery. So there's only one way out. That is to make that choice. In which path will you follow? And have hope that we'll be amongst those that follow that path diligently, although meaning we will not add or subtract anything. We will simply be inheritors of that knowledge. And also respect the fact that alhamdulillah, we still have a lot of our asatidha here alive today who are still carrying that knowledge on and teaching it to us. And let's take advantage of their company and support them while they're still around. And that bi-idhnillah, if we are diligent enough and learning from them and supporting them, that hopefully through their du'as, we will be the generation that will carry it. We will be aduluhu. We will carry that knowledge that was given to us on. Carry that knowledge that was given to us to the next generation and the next until that last day comes. And but alhamdulillah, no matter what situations we're in, that day has not come. Right? So we are here. We're still there. We're still here to do something and do a job. We have every reason to hope the promise of Allah is true. Take the lessons learned from other generations. This is not to say anything about them as if, to say, look at them, how bad they are and how good we are. No, it is to take a lesson. So the Absulun Nas, right, the most insightful of all people is one who takes lessons from others, both the good and the bad. So the mistakes of others also should be lessons for you, that we should not repeat those mistakes, because then we'll get the same results as they do. So that is the real reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions their saga so much in the Quran as compared to the Christians. Not much mention there of the Nasara, but there's plenty of mention of Bani Israel, because we're Ashbahul Ummam, because we will resemble them more than any other people on earth, meaning the mistakes that they have made, many of us will make those same mistakes. We should not want, or we should not it should not even be occurred in our mind to repeat those same mistakes, but rather we should want to follow in the path of those who carry this knowledge on diligently from each generation and be part of that ta'ifa, that group whom Allah will assist. And whoever tries to stop that group, by the way, also in many other hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that they will not be able to do anything. لا يضرهم من خذلهم. Whoever will try to hurt them will never be able to hurt that group. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His precious time, in these precious months, to rid us of fear and to rid us of apprehension and to give us hope and to make us those of courage to follow in the path of the people who preceded us in upholding this deen and transmitting this deen diligently without any additions and subtractions, and be very thankful to our teachers for being able to, or enabling us to be inheritors of that deen, and that they make dua for us as well, that all of us should be accepted, and then this job should be made easy for us with afiyah in all of our affairs. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وجزاكم الله خيرا كثيرا.